Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another lesson of our Christian Mentorship series. And for those of you who don't know, who've watching this video or kind of going out of order, whatever that might be, the purpose of this mentorship series is to equip you to be a mentor, as well as what to look for in regards to a mentor. And we did, I believe, is our last lesson that we kind of went over some of the statistics as far as the importance of mentorship. People are actually out there looking for mentor, and the benefits as well. So that's kind of what I want to stress here with these episodes. Is I want to encourage us to develop a mentorship program within our local church, or to find a mentor. And my personal opinion, it does not have to be this way. My personal opinion is to implement a mentorship program, like an official mentorship thing, qualify people to be mentors within the local church, because I think that really shows the value and the importance that we have in building up disciples and training the next generation of ministers. It does not have to be an official program that your church offers, but I would personally strongly encourage it. I think that it can be a huge benefit. And as well as having that official program, which I think I just mentioned, just in case I kind of forgot, lost my train of thought here, is when people are coming into the church and they're looking at the different types of ministries you have, and they see in that list of ministry options Christian mentorship. I think that will be a very valuable asset as well, because they'll see just how important it is to you. So without having to repeat myself, so we don't repeat myself, let's go ahead and dive into this. If you have not watched this, if you haven't watched this, this is your first lesson that you're watching. I have here in front of me, I've promoted it in the past couple episodes, I have a workbook. And my workbook is black and white, and that's because I have a black and white printer. But the PDF is available. We'll have the link in the description of this video below. The PDF is available as a colored PDF, so you're welcome to purchase a copy of it and print off a copy as well. So that's pretty much what I have for you in regards to that. I would encourage you to get yourself a copy. Excuse me. I would encourage you to get yourself a copy of this PDF, because there's more information here. In fact, actually, in this episode, which we've mentioned in some of the other lessons here as well, this one particular, I have, I'm currently looking at 1, 2, and 3 pages, maybe 4 pages of worksheets. 4 pages here, and it's not necessarily required homework, but it's really helpful material to help you find yourself a mentor. There's a calendar in there, a calendar with times, how long these meetings will be. There's some evaluation questions, really to help you prepare if you have somebody who wants to be a mentor, or you're wanting to be a mentor as well. And kind of some questions to help you prepare for when that finally happens. So I would encourage you to do that. For example, I have here, who is your mentor, backup mentor, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Some contact information for them, so that way you can have all your information in the book. And let me read this here. Some encouraging, improving questions to improve your faith walk. So these are some of the things that's in the workbook that we're not going to be go over within the lesson. We just have about 3 slides that we're going to go over with related. And I'd also encourage you, if you do purchase a copy of this book, PDF, however that comes about, if you come across this and you read some of the material, you feel like something's lacking or something else could be put in there, feel free to contact us at cc412.org. You can leave a comment. Actually, I would not encourage leaving a comment for this in the video description, because I might not get to it. But I would encourage you to contact us on our ministry page, Facebook, CC or Christian Cornerstone 412 Ministries, and we can get back to you within 12 hours, give or take. I mean, when it comes to messages like this, we try to get to them as quick as possible. So in this episode, we're talking about how to be a mentor, some practical applications, like I said, some self-evaluation things, and I want to get my laser pointer set up. And by the way, I would not encourage you to use the pen. I actually used this in a previous recording, had to restart it because it's the first time I used the pen, had no idea how to use it. But I like to get this laser pointer out as a just in case. So what we have here, let's go ahead and go to the slides. We have some internal qualifications of a mentor. These are some things that you really want. Sometimes, for example, this first one here, there might be a little bit of opposition. You might have a little bit of opposition if this is a quality in which you're reflecting to the person you're mentoring, or if you are a mentor or if you are a mentee, and your mentor's doing this. There might be a little bit of opposition, but we need to remember. We need to remember that this is really one of the best ways in which we grow. If we don't have this, there's not going to be much growth. I mean, it might be growth, but it might take a little bit longer. And sometimes even these things really help us to, really do some critical thinking within ourselves. So here's what we have here. As I go ahead and pause real quick. Okay, I had a little bit of a cough. I'm actually getting over a cold as of this recording. So one of the things we want to make sure that our mentor challenges our beliefs or questions them and really gets us to do some critical thinking. And it's not that they're trying to steer you away from biblical truth into heresy, but more specifically, each of us, each and every individual has a set of beliefs, has a set of way of doing things throughout our lives. And when we come across a challenge, this is one of the best ways in which we grow. I mean, you think about your schooling, your experience within elementary, high school, college, whatever that might be. You grew because you had the challenge that you faced was you had to read particular textbooks, you had to do some problem solving, answering questions, quizzes and tests, all of these things. And these really helped you to grow within that specific field of study. And likewise, the same thing is within our Christian faith. The best way in which we grow is when we have this challenge of our faith. Do I really believe? Do I really understand what I believe about my Christian faith? Is my certain level of understanding biblical? And I take that's a personal thing for me as well, because years ago, I had a set way of beliefs of the Christian belief system, Christian worldview. But it wasn't necessarily it was a Christian worldview, but there was a lot of worldly influences within my belief structure, within my doctrines. And it wasn't until I actually challenged myself to ask myself, is what I believe biblical? Can I really back up what I claim to believe? And this is really one of the greatest blessings. And it wasn't until that I really grew deeper in my faith. Now, as a man, as a human being, I'm going to continuously be challenged with my faith, continuously be growing. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. None of us are. But these challenges are the best way in which we grow. And so I would encourage you to find somebody who does challenge your beliefs. Mentors should be able to challenge our beliefs and encourage a critical thinking about our beliefs, just to help us to solidify what we believe and to better articulate it. Now, okay, I apologize. We might be pausing a little bit throughout this episode because I am working on getting over a cold here. So, first thing we want to make sure is that these individuals that we're we want to make sure that we are challenging the person in which we're mentoring. We want to make sure that we're challenging their beliefs to help them grow within the Christian faith to a deeper understanding. But we also, as the one who is being mentored, we want to make sure that the one who is mentoring us is also challenging our own. Another one we want to make sure is, do they exhibit humility? A mentor must be able to recognize their failures while giving credit to others, especially, most importantly, to God, for the accomplishments of their own life. Now, humility itself is not something that we as Christians reflect 100% in perfection. That's something that we don't do because we have the battle of sin within us. And that's an ongoing battle, but a good mentor is really somebody who's willing to admit, okay, I was wrong on this, or is somebody who doesn't want to take the spotlight on things. I think of actually my grandfather when he was around. In my own experience with him, he was a very humble man, wanting to put God first, and within his marriage, he wanted to honor that in a biblical way. So, in my personal view of my grandfather, obviously, he was a very humble man. Pastors are another good example. Now, we do know there's some very messed up ones, but look to a pastor and just maybe even take some time to watch your pastor and look at how he exhibits humility, and just to really help you to look for a mentor. And I would encourage, my personal opinion, I would encourage you to find somebody who is not your pastor. Find somebody within the church. But the reason I say that is a pastor naturally, because of their position, already has a lot on their plate. Now, in some cases, they might have the ability to become your mentor, but some cases they might not. And it all depends on how your church is structured, what your pastor does do and what he doesn't, what he assigns other deacons, other elders within the church to do. That's all dependent, and it changes on a case by case basis depending on your church structure. But find somebody who's willing to admit, it's like, hey, I don't know everything. I'm still learning as much as you are, and who's willing to even learn from you. I mean, their priority or their purpose, the mentor's purpose, is to exhibit humility, but to also train the younger generation in the same way. So we want to make sure that this person's not somebody who's going to say, I'm always right, because we're not. We're only human. But we also want to make sure within that they, as I said, that they point to God. Now, this next one here that we want to look at is how they deal with personal hardships. These things come across all the time. And one of the things I want us to look at, this is one that comes to my mind, when it comes to personal hardships, is it somebody who's continuously complaining or putting some sort of critique on social media? Is this somebody who's constantly reaching out to everybody, to, crying out, I don't know what to do kind of thing? And I'm not saying it's wrong to reach out to people, but we don't want to be putting ourselves out there on a public display of woe is me, look at all of these problems that I have, because while it might be a cry to, I need help, or can somebody support me in some way, we also put ourselves in a position that we're really, kind of taking the spotlight, and we're putting our hardships at the position in which give me attention. And that can come with pride as well. But so that's kind of a 50-50 thing, and I encourage you to give some feedback on that particular issue. But hardships themselves, we don't want to keep those private, at least not 100%. There are some things in which we should reach out to other people. Human beings, they can't do everything. And even growing up, we might not understand how to handle a particular situation because we've never been in these things. So handling hardships, I would probably say this is somebody who is recognizing that I shouldn't be putting these on display, but at the same time, I shouldn't be keeping them private. Now, here's a comment that I have within this workbook. Mentors are mature enough to understand hardships are a natural part of life. They see these experiences as growth challenges and work to overcome these obstacles. They have a life defined by the Lord's promises rather than the world's problems. And that's what we need to remember too. When these hardships come, it can most likely be, not always, but in most of the cases I would probably say it is, it could be God equipping us. He's putting us through this particular hardship, either one, as a means of discipline because we've done wrong, or even putting us through this crucible so that we come out stronger. And that's how all of us, I believe, that's all of us how we need to look at these hardships. What's the purpose, and how am I handling these things? Am I trusting God to help me get through this? Am I casting my burdens on others? Do I have this support structure through these difficult moments of my life? If they do, I would strongly say that's somebody that you could go to, because they're setting that example. They say, hey, I need to be able to take care of these difficult issues myself, but at the same time, I need some sort of support system to help me through these things. And that's something you want to look for. And if you're looking to have a mentor, you need to be willing to do these things as well, to reach out to your mentor and say, hey, I've got this struggle, this boyfriend girlfriend struggle, this financial struggle. I'm trying to figure out how to fix my car or interpret scripture, whatever this issue might be. I've got this person that's continuously attacking me in my faith. How do I deal with these things? And to have somebody there to support you and guide you through that is very beneficial. So then the third one here, fourth one, whatever number we have here, are they contributing to the better of the community? A good mentor has a desire to reach out to the community. And this could either be through shelters, charity drives, teaching ministries, and so on. A good mentor, a good relationship with the Lord will be reflected in how they handle relationships with others. Apathy or disconnection from others suggests a possible lack of Christian maturity. Now, I think of somebody, reading that last piece, an apathy or disconnect, I probably relate that, and it's dependent. It's not always the case with everybody, but sometimes, or this so-called disconnect from the church, for an example, you're just going to church on Sunday, and then that's about it. It could be that you have your hands full, and it might be that you need to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I need some help. I'm doing these things. I have these things going on in my life. I have a limited amount of time or whatever else it might be, and I'm looking for that support. It could be something like that. But also at the same time, a good mentor is somebody who's not just going to church on Sunday and then going home, living out their personal life, but that they want to do something to not only better the community, but to better the church. And with the resources and the time that they have available, they're finding a way in which they can. Like I said, whether it be through shelters, charity drives, or even some sort of ministry within the local church. Are they contributing? That's something we want to look forward to when it comes to being a mentor and also being the one who is mentored. So, and again, this could vary depending on the size of your church, the size of your community. Some churches don't offer a lot of ministry opportunities, and likewise, some communities don't have a lot of opportunities as well. So that's all a case-by-case basis, depending on the situation and the community that you're with. But I would personally find somebody who's eager to help, somebody who wants to contribute in some way. Somebody who's already contributing, that would be more beneficial because they have some sort of set experience behind them in which you can learn from. But even if it's somebody who's continuously trying to do something, or for an example, this ministry here, we're developing teaching lessons. There's another example. Is this somebody who's actively developing something, lessons for an example, or sharing insight to scriptures and social media, whatever it is, some way in which they can better other people. That's a very valuable asset to have as well when it comes to having an internal qualifications of what it means to be a good mentor. We also have here is, do they have a strong sense of self-worth and integrity? A good mentor knows their worth and who they're growing into. More specifically, they know that they're growing into who God has designed them to be. They are less concerned about the approval of men and more focused on the approval of God. And at the same time, they are not concerned with an outside validation. Now, an outside validation or external validation can be acceptable. For an example, when it comes to ministry, when it comes to a pastoral role, you do need the lay of hands on you, however that might be, whether it be an actual lay of hands, I think is beneficial, or something private and then publicly within the local church, you have the elders and the pastors saying, we have communicated, we've discussed, we've prayed, we've laid our hands on this, however the structure might work, we recognize this person. Now that type of validation is a biblical requirement, but we don't want to be somebody who's continuously reaching out, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at what I've done. Because sometimes it can really be, and we do this, we do this here, as I pause real quick. Okay, we're back. We can sometimes do this in excitement. Let's say myself, I can only give you myself as an example. I don't want to try to puff myself up, but when it comes to social media, I mean, I'm usually sharing some stuff that I find online, or fun things. Like I'm a man that likes to make stuff and projects. For example, these lessons, this workbook, and I currently have a 3D printer going on right now, which might be dinging on us throughout this lesson. But I like to share these things. In fact, I'm actually working on making this. Just want to share. It's really fun. It's on my desk right now. I'm making a little Minecraft set for a friend of mine who has a son who's into Minecraft, and so I'm currently making up a little play set for him. Really enjoy, and some of the stuff that I create, I like to share. So I mean, that stuff's completely fine. But when you're continuously, when that's really all you're doing, and you're just looking for all the likes and the subscribes and everything, and that's your focus, you've got 5,000, 500,000, whatever it is, subscribers and likes a day, just off of, nonsense posts or whatever that might look like. I mean, that's really someone I would personally say is not really, somebody of an integrity to look for, because they're basically putting every single day of their life on social media. For that approval. In fact, that's a society we live in with, unfortunately. But we want to look at somebody that's more focused on being approved by God. And this is somebody who's going against the grain of the world, who's, the world is saying, well, it's black, and then, God says it's white, so I'm going to say it's white. The world says go left, and God says go right. Well, I'm going to tell you to go right. And they're facing that kind of opposition. This is somebody who says, I don't care what the world says, but I do care about what God says. So that's one of the things we want to recognize, is that this is somebody who's strong in the Lord, who doesn't really let society, bash them on the head and throw them down, and they don't let those things get to them. They need to have a high sense of who they are in the kingdom of God. So then finally here, let's see if we got another slide, another section here. Okay, so we have here some more reasons here. Do they have a mentor? This is, I believe, to be very important. I remember a gentleman I was in conversation with maybe about a year or two ago, in which I was encouraging, to find himself a mentor, and he made some sort of comment, and he's in a doctrinal disagreement with me. I align with Calvinism, and he aligns with Arminianism. But there's a couple different verses in which he was taken out of context and misunderstanding what they were saying. And I remember a conversation with him. I was encouraging him to find a mentor, and he made some sort of statement about you would do well, or I'm butchering this. I don't remember exactly how it was worded, but he was saying is like, you should be mentored by me. Meaning I should be mentored by him. And I found that to be really problematic, because this is also a gentleman who does not have a mentor and doesn't think he needs one. And we need to look at that as really a red flag, because before somebody can be a mentor, they need to be somebody who has a mentor. Because this shows that they actually value that, is that they value the guidance of other believers, or those who are more mature in the faith, or more understanding of the Word of God, and however that might look. So if they don't have a mentor, and I believe, my personal thoughts is, I think every Christian everywhere should always have a mentor. Now we're going to get to an age, we might be 60, 70 years old when we can't find somebody who's 80 or 90 years old, but we can always find somebody. If you don't have yourself a Paul, find yourself a Silas or Barnabas. Somebody who's a mutual age. And this is obviously depending on your personal age. But, if you're in the younger generations, whatever that might be, whether it be the 15s or the teens or the 20s and 30s, find yourself somebody who maybe even 10 years older than you, who can help to be your mentor, because they're setting that example that, they're saying like, yes, I value mentorship. It's very important. And if they don't have a mentor, then what they're really wanting to do is, I say this loosely, build an empire. If they have a mentor, then they're setting the example and actually proving that what they say of the value of a mentor is actually does matter to them as well. Now, another piece here that we have here, in fact, actually, let me read this comment. This is a text in which I have here in the workbook. in regards to this question here, do they have a mentor? It's not always easy to find somebody who is a mentor or who has a mentor or who can mentor. A good mentor will have someone or even perhaps a few individuals they look to for their own spiritual guidance. In some cases, a Christian mentor can be through biographies of the past ministers, through sermons and teachings of men such as John MacArthur, R.C. Sproul, Steve Lawson, Charles Spurgeon, John Edwards, and so on. So I would probably say I would personally encourage you maybe to find three. Find somebody, for example, here these names that I've just listed off. Find somebody who you can listen to other sermons, like John MacArthur, for an example. He's off in California. I'm in Ohio. But I like to listen to some of his content. I like to listen to R.C. Sproul and Steve Lawson, which is why I placed them there. But I was actually listening to a series by one of the professors at the Master's Seminary years ago. It's on their YouTube channel. I don't remember what it was called. But the professor was actually explaining that in some cases, some of the titans of the past actually look to biographies as a way to mentor them, such as John Edwards or Charles Spurgeon. So they read these biographies, and that's a mentorship tool, I would say. Now, I wouldn't say that 100% look to Charles Spurgeon as your mentor, because you can only get feedback through his text. I mean, if you have something you haven't read on about that he's spoken on, you can't exactly go to Charles Spurgeon and say, "Hey, help me. What do I do?" So, but their lives, their lifestyle, and for example, Spurgeon and Edwards, how they preached, those things can be beneficial. But you want to find somebody in which you can call up, send them a text, go knock on their door, and talk and say, "Hey, insert issue here." So I think that is very important. It is very important to consider, when considering a mentor, someone who doesn't have a mentor. Let me actually read this. It's very important when considering a mentor, someone who doesn't have a Christian mentor may believe they have arrived at their spiritual sanctification goals. So we've already went over that. I just want to make sure we're covering all these aspects of this. Now, we also want to check this out. We want to look and see, how do they spend their time growing, supporting? Are they growing and supporting, or is it on wasteful things? A good mentor knows how to manage their time. Now, it's not to say you're going to do that perfect, but they try to harmonize with what they can and can't do, and they understand that I cannot take on another task for this person over here because I've already have all of these things. I have all of these things. If I take on something else, then I'm not going to be able to manage my time well because I'm trying to juggle everything. So they know their limits. They know how much time they have, and they know how much time they don't have. So they know what is helpful for the building up of themselves and for others, and how they spend their time reflects what they value and how they will spend their time with you. That's very important. You want to find somebody who's doing something, whatever that might consist of, who's doing something to build up the body of Christ, to grow in their own faith walk, and they can also help you as well. Whatever that might consist of. And it could be, some sort of hands-on thing. It could be some sort of charity thing, like we've already mentioned, teachings, whatever that might consist of. Or, likewise, are they spending these things on wasteful things? And this could be somebody who's just playing video games all throughout their days. They go to work, a 40-hour job, and they just sit their butts watching TV and playing video games all day, and then go to church on Sunday. You don't want somebody like that, because it shows that they're not really being productive with their time. Yes, there's a time in which we can relax, watch a TV show or something, or even play a video game, whatever that might consist of, whatever your leisure time would consist of. But we want to make sure that we're really being productive in some way. Am I just going to work to make some money and then come home and relax throughout the rest of the time? Or am I going to work doing some sort of mentorship, or however that might work? And am I allotting some time throughout the week to somehow build up the body of Christ? Am I reaching out to people, asking, how are things going? Am I contributing in some way? So bottom line is, like we've already mentioned, how they spend their time really shows what's important. Same thing, you can take the same concept with finances, and we're not going to discuss that just yet. But Another piece we have here is, do they look outside for answers? A good mentor should be mature enough to trust their understanding and personal wisdom. But this does not mean that they do not seek guidance from others, but rather self-doubt itself is not something they struggle with as much as they were when they were younger. This is somebody, you want somebody not necessarily who's going to have all of the answers, but somebody with every question that you come with is like, hey, what does this mean? What does this mean? What do I do here? What do I do here? You don't want somebody who's going to say, let me call you back, let me text you back, let me call up this other person here and get an answer from them. You want somebody who can actually guide you, because you, as the one who's being mentored, is going to this individual trying to get this guidance. And if they're going off and getting their answers from somebody else on everything, then you can kind of skip the middleman and go to that person. So there's more that we can talk about on that, but I mean, that's one of the things we want to look for. We want to make sure that we as mentors are able to answer the questions that come to us, that we're able to guide. And if we can't, then we should not necessarily be qualified as a mentor. Now, we also have here, I think, spiritual practices a part of their daily life. Now, I don't necessarily think I do. I have it labeled as Christian practices in the workbook. Is this a part of their daily life? You will know them by their fruits. These are some of the popular, most powerful words. I can't say most powerful. Jesus Christ said a lot of powerful words. But this is something that we need to recognize. You will know them by their fruits. Their fruits will be multiple factors within their Christian faith. It can look like meditation of the word. It can look like church participation. It can look like, there's the beep. It can look like involvement in the word, frequent volunteer activities and requirements, and so on. So, again, we don't want to get somebody who's just going to church on Sunday and we'll see you next week kind of concept. We want somebody who's actively involved within the Christian community. So, and because we spent a lot of time on that, we're not going to spend too much more. But do they support your own journey and for your own spiritual growth? There's another piece here. This is interesting. I completely forgot I put this. Mentors, now you might get confused here. Mentors are mentors before they're mentors. Now, these are people who see the potential in you, and as you mature as a Christian, and they desire to see all young believers grow in the faith. So before there's even some sort of official recognition, they see this potential in you. They see this spark within you. For example, let's say myself, teaching the word the best that I know how, discussing the word, explaining this, developing these workbooks. Let's say I find somebody who has a similar drive and who's writing these things down. I mean, it could be whoever it is of any age. All they do is have this notebook, and they've got a stack. In fact, actually, now that I think about it, I know somebody who comes to mind. But they've got all these notebooks of all these things in which they're working on, and their ideas, and they're navigating the Word of God. When you see that, or if I was to see that, then I'd be like, well, how can I help you? I mean, they could also see that struggle. It's like, and from my perspective, if I see somebody struggling with a certain thing, it's like I can look at that and say, I know that experience. I know I've went through that, and now how can I help them? So they see this, and they see the passion within you, whatever sort of ministry drive in which they're affiliated with, whatever type of ministry they're in, and they see is like there's somebody who I think has great potential, and I want to help them. So, and that's what I mean. Before they're mentors, they are mentors. So we want to find somebody who can support us on our journey, who's there to encourage us, and who says like, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about this direction? Have you tried going this? I'm struggling with putting these pieces together. Have you tried shifting them a little bit? Have you tried a different shapes? Kind of, that kind of concept. Somebody who can encourage this. But remember, it's also I'm actually reading this here real quick. Okay, that's a side note here. One of the things I want us to remember, it's our job as a mentor to seek out others who we can mentor ourselves. So as Christians, I believe this should be kind of a universal thing here within the Christian community. We need to be actively looking who we can mentor, and not just mentor, but disciple. And we've talked a little bit about this a few lessons ago, the difference between mentorship and discipleship. So I believe I want to wrap up with that. We're actually, well, we're a little longer here. We'll just go ahead and finish this up. We're almost done here. This is the last slide. We'll actually go ahead and put all of these up here as a just in case, so that way we can kind of push through them. Make sure that's it. Ask questions, I believe. Okay, so these are some of the things in which you can do in regards to mentorship. And I'm putting these up here because I don't want to spend too much time on them, but they're really beneficial. You want to be somebody who's committed, that commitment, because if you're not, then this person, the person in which you're mentoring, is going to look to you and see that lack of commitment and be like, well, they don't really care as much, so I'm going to just quit this altogether, or I'm going to find somebody else. But then also a benefit that we have here is find a substitute. Find somebody else who can be a mentor. And that's why I would say that we should encourage, having two mentors, or even if it's assigned, whoever's assigned it. If you're the one being mentored, you're the young disciple, so to speak. Find somebody who's your designated go-to for particular issues, and then perhaps find a secondary as a just in case, because your primary mentor, they might be off on vacation somewhere. They might be, with their family. They might have something come up, whatever that might consist of. So they're not necessarily going to be available 24/7. So having a backup can be beneficial, but also at the same time, it might also be beneficial to assign the mentor to assign the backup, because they know that they have a mentor, and perhaps even their mentor would be the backup. If you can't reach me, you can reach my mentor. I think that would probably be a good way to go, because you know that you can trust the information and the guidance that you're getting, throughout this mentorship journey. But you also want to find ways to put these biblical teachings into practice. Now, this could probably be a challenge. It depends on what it is, but there's always, throughout all of Scripture, there's always some sort of application process. And so when we're reading together, we can find some particular thing in there and be like, okay, well, how do I put this in practice this week throughout my Christian walk? Find somebody who teaches the word and with the proper interpretation. Now, again, this is not going to be perfect. This is not something we're going to have 100%, because human beings are fallible. We are always learning. So don't expect your mentor to know every single thing about the Word of God. It's not going to happen. And then also finally ask questions, because the fact that you're asking questions shows that you want to learn more, and the mentor who asks questions as well is really helping to encourage that critical thinking and that growth in a particular understanding or walk, whatever particular issue it might be. Finally, here I would encourage, create a journal of, here's what I've started, here's what I've learned. Get yourself a 50-cent notebook from Walmart, and write down your journey that you're having with this mentor. And that can be used as really a guide to look how far you've come, look at the accomplishments we've done together, look at what we've discussed. And you can even use that as a tool in your own mentorship ministry as well, because you might have something in your notes that you've went over with, discussed, you've been challenged with, whatever that might consist of. And the person that you're mentoring a couple years from now is going through something similar, and be like, you know what? Turning here to page 34, I want you to read this and let me know what you think. So there's a lot of things in which you can do. We are short on time, and that is really all I have for you within this particular lesson. Actually, we're over time. I was hoping to keep this 20 minutes, but there is some additional information in here, some worksheets, some helpful charts and everything within the workbook for this lesson. So I would encourage you to get a copy of this workbook. Provide some feedback on it. If there's some more that you think could be added into it, let me know. I'd love to hear from you, and we'll send you an updated copy. And also, I believe that is about it as far as we have for this episode. So until our next episode, our next lesson on this mentorship journey, you guys have yourself a very wonderful time.